We start with the ongoing crisis in Venezuela, and according to reports, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has stated that Chevron has been in Venezuela for a long time, and the United States now expects its commitment to increase greatly. Bessent has also signaled that the United States could lift additional sanctions on Venezuela as early as next week to help clear the way for Venezuelan oil sales. The move is intended to open up Venezuela's energy sector and support efforts to rebuild the country's economy after years of isolation under heavy international sanctions. He said that he plans to meet next week with the heads of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank to discuss re-engaging those institutions with Venezuela, which has had limited formal cooperation in over 2 decades. Nearly $5 billion in Venezuelan IMF reserve assets that have been frozen could potentially be deployed to aid economic recovery if access is restored. Okay, of course, this comes after the capture of President Nicolas Maduro, the now toppled President Nicolas Maduro, who is currently held in the United States, and as the Trump administration continues to engage with US oil companies, some of which claim that Venezuela, given the political landscape and infrastructure, is uninvestable. So the Trump administration is continuing to try and coax those oil companies into the Southern American country. Venezuela, of course, has the largest proven oil reserves in the world, and Donald Trump seeks to install American companies to restore the infrastructure in Venezuela in order to get it operating in the interests of what he says are the Venezuelan people and the United States. This, of course, has been ongoing since the capture of President Nicolas Maduro on the 3rd of this month, which has caused mass international outcry. Joining us now is Major General Sudhakar G. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert. He joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us. This potential sanction relief, Bessent said that these could be lifted within as early as next week to help clear the way for these Venezuelan oil sales. What will that do for the situation of coaxing those American companies to invest in Venezuelan oil infrastructure?
Spot on, Thomas. So it is, as per my take and understanding, it is simply cajoling, coaxing the American companies who have flatly refused to come into Venezuelan oil market, having had a very ugly experience in the recent past, because the situation is very unstable. Political stability is a far cry, and also the market is absolutely in a destabilized form. And plus the oil which is to be drilled is a hard oil. It requires a very specialized method of processing. Only then it can be refined. So therefore, although it may have the largest quantum, almost 20% of the reserve in the world oil market, but still by virtue of the hardness of the oil and also the political instability in the country, the American companies are rather discouraged. So whatever steps are coming the way in a calibrated manner by the US government and its team is basically to lure or attract the people, the American oil companies, to come into the market in a concerted manner. Back to you, Thomas.
Yes, Sudhakarji, do stay with us. We're also joined by Surinder Singh Lali. He's an international affairs expert. He joins us live from New Delhi. Of course, as analysts say, the head has been cut off the snake, but the snake is still moving, of course, with the same Venezuelan government installed in Caracas, which some oil companies have been reluctant to invest in Venezuela with the current government. And political instability, quite frankly. The lifting of these sanctions, do you see it more likely for the likes of Chevron, Exxon to come and invest in Venezuela, given the lifting of these sanctions?
Thank you, Thomas. It's such a pleasure and honor for me to be here. And I think I must want to acknowledge, add, and appreciate what Sudhakar ji said. Uh, Thomas, I think America, and especially, Donald Trump and his little coterie is rattled. Maybe just to deviate people's attention from the Epstein files, they've played with this misadventure where they've actually abducted the president of a country and sort of made it a Netflix kind of a episode. So I don't think there was any method to the madness, because what's going to happen is that as it is, Sudhakar ji rightly said, that is hard oil, and Exxon has already paid their dues, and they didn't have a good experience. And now when they push them back, it's going to be even more difficult, because the entire country is in a state of unrest. I mean, nobody knows who's going to run Venezuela now. As if they're going to run Venezuela, the Marco Rubio and their team are going to run the country of Venezuela through Zoom. That's not going to happen. And the executives would be very hesitant to go, because their life would be in danger, and America cannot put boots on the ground anymore.
Okay.
Because then that what they did in Afghanistan and Iraq or Libya, how it backfires when body bag comes home. So the bigger problem for these executives, despite the hard oil, would be risking their lives. And unless they don't do that, it's not going to happen. That's one. And number two is, now Donald Trump will have to go to the Congress. He's been bypassing the Congress and unilaterally, he's made a kabuki circus of the entire world. But now he'll have to go to Congress to rebuild, because now they need to influence, the IMF and the World Banks, for which now he'll have to seek congressional approval. And now that when he goes back to the same Congress, who he has really, really rubbed the wrong way by totally disregarding them. I mean, you don't go and attack a country without even taking your own country and the houses into confidence, forget violation of the UN Charter. So that's another complication. Now that he goes back for any more rebuilding or sending the companies in, it's not going to be that easy, because Donald Trump will not be able to unilaterally do it. I mean, yes, he's been successful in cutting the supplies to China. And as I've always said, that this is not really much to do with, drugs or not so fair election, but it is more to do with cutting the supplies. And America is very unhappy and rattled the way China and Russia have crept into America's backyard, which is the Caribbean and the Latin American countries. So now, cutting the story short and brief, is Donald Trump and his little stooge club is going to face problems, because now they cannot simply pump his ego in the cabinet meetings and praise him as even sort of an emperor who thinks like Napoleon or Hitler now. So now it's going to be tough, because now when the rubber meets the road, it's going to be tough for them. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you. I want to go back to Sudhakar ji. Of course, the Trump administration has put its main focus in getting these US companies into Venezuela, lifting these sanctions, etc. However, many of these companies have cited the political instability and uncertainty as the reason why they will not invest. What do you think about the order in which the Trump administration has gone about things? Of course, not really announcing anything when it's come to government stability in Venezuela, the possibility of regime change. We still don't know whether Marina Machado is being installed. What are your thoughts about the order in that the Trump administration has operated this?
Excellent, Thomas. I'm glad that you have raised this question, and I must compliment Mr. Lally. He deserves to have last say on any subject under discussion, and he is a domain expert in many issues. But I quite admire his articulations on the subject. Coming to the question which you have raised, it has got a global, it has got a regional, and it has got a local angle. When I talk about the global, let's be very pragmatic. If China has expanded its sphere of influence, so has Russia, and Iran and Hezbollah have concentrated in Venezuela, it has not happened overnight. It has been building up over past several years because of lack of effective policy of USA as a superpower. So to dismiss all this, discount or cleanse the system overnight is sheer, it is impossible. It is simply out of a pipe dream, I would say. Therefore, to expect any kind of a result within the tenure, balanced tenure of Donald Trump is a very far-fetched dream. The only way it can happen is the way he is coercing, he is forcing his own people, the way he is operating his immigration and the custom people on duty, empowering them to shoot their own countrymen at point blank range for no rhyme or reason. That is the way he's going to call them to White House for dinner and talk to them and put pressure on them to go back to Venezuela, which in my opinion is going to be a very hard take for all this, because at the end of the day, the commercial viability of any businessman, or particularly the oil company, will come into play and will be the mainstay of making a decision. One. Number two, the global angle. When I talk about the global angle, no emerging power in this polycentric or multipolar world, it may or may not be accepted by Donald Trump, is going to take it very kindly. The way Maduro, a sitting president of a republic, has been actually hijacked, and they call it under the garb, under the camouflage of law enforcement. Law enforcement, even a kid going school will understand law enforcement is related only to the homeland security within the boundaries of a company. They are trying to enforce something 4,500 kilometers away. Is this the way the law enforcement is done? And is this the way superpower is supposed to behave? The kinetic attack per se against a country, it belies, it defies the very principle of interpretation. So how much lie they can actually resort to. And third and most important thing is the local. Like I agree with Mr. Lali, it is a diversionary tactic, and soon you will find the regime change pressure in Iran will keep building up. It's building up as it is, and also they will start exerting pressure on Colombia. Now Greenland factor is coming. These are all schemes and designs to distract the attention of the domestic polity, so that Donald Trump can have an extended stay, at least to fulfill his tenure and term as a president for 4 years. Otherwise, I'm afraid the midterm elections are around the corner. If they do not actually introspect and do things in an honest and in a sincere manner of governance, the way it should be, I'm afraid America is actually heading down the drain, and it will be very irreversible to stop. All this game is driven by one thing: de-dollarization, the threat of de-dollarization. Trump is having nightmarish kinds of experience, so as his team. Whether you talk about the BRICS, his basic aim is to crack a whip and make sure that the BRICS and the expanding sphere gets collapsed. It does not pose as a threat, whether it is Russia, China, or any other country. Back to you, Thomas.
Surrender Lali, I want to come back to you. Of course, Donald Trump has been very vocal, very unapologetic when it comes to his ambitions with Venezuela. He even said on the on flight on Air Force One that the United States runs the world now, including which of course saw after the operation in Venezuela on January the 3rd, mass international outcry citing that the United States broke international law. Do you see any repercussions for the United States? Is Donald Trump correct when he says that the US does run the world? And how do you see this develop, and what does it mean for international law?
Thomas, if anybody who thinks he runs the world, irrespective of the American $30 trillion economy, I think that gentleman needs psychiatric help. He's a megalomaniac. He's a mercantilist who's obsessed with himself. So I don't think that statement itself contradicts itself. Nobody runs the world. Today, in a global village, you can't run the world by yourself. He needs allies. America's growth post the Second World War was only because it ensured that it had a bunch of allies who were, in a way, nincompoops, who didn't have the army might and simply signed the dotted line every time America had to go attack a country for reasons best known to the United States. Look at what they did in Iraq, Syria, Libya. So I don't need to say that, number one. Number two, Donald Trump is not a politician. Please understand. I mean, unfortunately, his age has also gotten the better of him, and he needs something to grab eyeballs. And Major General Sudhakarji, every time I listen to you, I can say the risk of not sounding arrogant. I go back more wiser. So thank you so much, sir, that I'm allowed to share the screen space with you. And now getting back to the contrarian Donald Trump, he is now he needs to get people's attention. By the way, he gets up in the middle of the night and in capital letter he starts to type, where he's doing nothing else but disregarding everything that America possibly stood for. Next is going to be ICE. I mean, Thomas, America is at war with itself. Look at the way things are turning out in Minnesota. I mean, it's the army fighting the American people. Look at the way people are being shot only because they are women, they are helpless, and both their hands were on the steering wheel. And yet Donald Trump is putting his weight behind ICE. So ICE is probably the next ISIS. What is he going to do next? Iran, Greenland, Mexico, Colombia, because he needs to divert people's attention. If he doesn't do that, he feels insecure. And then people start questioning the Epstein files too. And look at the way he spoke about us, India. I mean, Howard Lutnick, I think, is on record saying that, Modi ji didn't call. I mean, end of the day, are you serious? You're talking about democracies which has the future of 1.4 billion people in India and 340 million in America. Those relationships are going to be set only on the basis of the Indian Prime Minister not pampering the ego of Donald J. Trump and a phone call. Is that what is reduced? Global order and the future of almost half the world. So I think it's going to be very sad. And as Sudhakarji rightly said, and if I may add, it is just not the de-dollarization, it is also the rare earth. Because the elephant in the room could be oil in Venezuela, but the dragon is the rare earths, which is in the Caribbean, which Donald Trump's need. Because if you look at it, the way China literally choked America and called their bluff out in the tariffs was, they said, you can keep your soybeans, we're going to stop your rare earth. And America was probably sleeping for the last 20 years, not understanding that, they're going to hit a brick wall in terms of rare earth. I mean, now they feel they want to get back to Bagram because they think they have rare earths when they left the same Bagram, in the previous term. So I think Donald Trump is making a mockery of the whole world. And unfortunately, the Republicans who need to get themselves a spine implant. Otherwise, not only is he ruining America, he's also ruining the global order. He's going to make Iran and China and Russia much more aggressive in terms of China acquiring, Taiwan, and Russia further going down, doubling down on Ukraine. So he's not only disturbing his country, but he's disturbed the entire global order. But thank you, Thomas.
Of course, gentlemen, this warrants a much longer discussion, but of course we have ran out of time. I want to thank Surendra